ballot box forms the political platform.
Demand their rights.
Open up the education system. Some morality.
Decent human conduct. Across the classes.
Some gesture.
Across both sides of industry. We get no production for that.
In which we live.
Who are you telling to shut up? I know this man.
Now,
we're both in the same hospital.
To return to the subject.
Was a Russian spy. You didn't know that.
That I opened the discussion with.
You don't tell me nothing. This is a free park. Now you, my friend, this man's taking you serious. Watch it now.
Now you understand why
he's taking you serious.
A politician is a liar. A politician is one who would sell his grandmother, all right, for a knockdown price. You know this is true.
So, are you a Russian spy?
No, I'm a mince spy.
You've got a Russian hat on.
Greetings and welcome to Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park, where the fifth number Fido in the series, very thrilling episode has taken place for the ideological caucus with the view which is discussed with the extra-parliamentary parties of that which exist in Britain here today. Now, the programme planners asked me to make very clear in a most understandable and simply term folder for your eardrums for that joy. Now, what I want to start off with is the great joy of the philosophical fundamental insofar as the great caucus of people who's gathering here, and the linguistic philosophy through the epiglotty, and the special people and Achilles seals and philolop in the wops there, and falling their blood and the skin put round people's shoulders, keep them warm in the winter, because he loved his wife and kissy cuddly. But the moral of it is the caucus which I want to underline most for you, so gather it again. Now there's another ideological caucus. What about the exploding atom bomb with the Euromission of thought that's blowing the people of Smithereekers in the early morning? All gather up their levers and stuff in the pocket there and go home and say, oh, all the levers gone, there's nothing left for human coil. Oh, dear folly.
They tell you they represent the people. They tell you they're acting sincere. I say that people are not convinced. I say that politicians don't care. They say they have varying opinions. To me, they are much the same, contributing to the country's mess than having someone else to blame.
Oh, yeah, it is. But the line of anarchist theory is unbroken from the time of Zeno the Stoic, let alone Kropotkin and Bakunin. The line of anarchist terrorism, all right, is unbroken for a similar length of time. As I've said, I do not defend anybody who mistakenly uses revolutionary violence.
Okay, but anarchism is impotent without that.
No, it is not. Oh, no, don't talk ridiculous.
How would it ever happen?
Anarchism is impotent if you use that, because as soon as you use violence in the name of freedom, you have destroyed freedom.
I mustn't bite the apple. I must eat it.
Okay? So, the way to destroy the state, the only way to destroy the state, bearing in mind that the state is violence.
Have you ever made
love?
That
is what is going on in Ireland.
You've got to bite,
that is what is going on
the
in
breasts,
Poland, right? That is
You've
what is going
sweat
on
in bed, man.
Guatemala.
You don't wank
yourself.
Okay,
violence of states over states, even states over their own people.
No way!
And the following day,
shut up all night.
The following day, when they got the kangaroo back out of the water,
it would be bad enough, you know, if you were so stupid that you voted for one of these hypocritical, murdering liars under the misapprehension that they were telling the truth. But you don't do this. You vote for them even though you know damn well they're liars. And this needs some explanation and some investigation, you know.
That's a load of tribe, that is. You'll be telling us a load of tribe.
You tell me a politician who is not a liar. One politician, dead or alive, Maggie Thatcher is not a liar. That statement is a lie. You know? Margaret Thatcher would not know the truth if it ran her over.
If you was honest today, you wouldn't be here.
I am not honest, but at least I am honestly dishonest. I have never claimed to be speaking the truth. I know I'm a liar.
Yeah, that's it. Well then, you're talking about all these politicians, but it's not right.
Why is it not right?
The odd one that's a liar. Most of them are straightforward enough. And if they
Some
were,
of them,
you wouldn't be here.
I don't really have time in the time I have to give you a more general introduction to anarchism, but as this series of programs is concerned with young people and why they vote, and first-time voters and why they vote, perhaps I could begin by giving you my peculiar views on why both young people and first-time voters should not vote at all. It's a truism and a cliche to say that all politicians are liars. It is common for the Labour Party to tell you what liars the Tories are, for the Tories to tell you what liars the Socialists are, and for the Liberal SDP to tell you what liars everybody is. And when one comes to agree with all of them and say that politicians perhaps only speak the truth when they are speaking about their opponents, then the choice of who to vote for becomes a ridiculous one. What politicians say before an election and what politicians say after an election are two very, very different things. The electorate accept that. They vote not for the Tories, but to keep the Labour Party out. They vote not for the Labour Party, but to keep the Tories out. They do not vote for what they believe in, they vote for what they are least opposed to. And very few people have the courage to stand on their principles and say, none of the candidates is acceptable, the system under which they're elected is not acceptable, and therefore I will boycott the election altogether. Now, okay, to negate a negative is a very positive thing, but there are very positive reasons why one should not vote. The people you vote for have today virtually no power. The politicians do as their front bench tells them. Their front bench will do as their purse holders tell them, either the unions or their big business financiers. We have no control whatsoever over the people who really run the country. We will never have any control over the people who really run the country until the state and the government and the whole idea of government is swept away. Once every 5 years, we put the mark of an illiterate on a piece of paper and try and tell Tweedledum from Tweedledee.
I'm John Swinney, the National Secretary of the Young Scottish Nationalists. And like tens of thousands of other SNP members throughout Scotland, I believe that the problems of the people will only be solved once we have a Scottish Parliament established within our own country. You just need to look around the cities, the town cities of Scotland, and you'll see the problems that the people are suffering. Unemployment now standing at 350,000. Young people come out of school at 16, unable to find jobs. Government training courses don't provide enough hope and experience for them. There's grave injustice in Scotland, and as nationalists, we seek to give the Scottish people a say in what goes on in their own country, to say how Scottish resources should be allocated to solving the problems of the people and ensuring that the young people and the old have a decent future in their own country. It is only once we have a democratic Scottish Parliament that we can tackle the problems of poverty and bad housing in the Pilton, Craigmillar and Broomhouse areas of Edinburgh. Only then can we tackle the problem of very severe education cuts by the Lothian Regional Council controlled by the Conservatives. Only once we have a Parliament, once Scottish local authorities can act and can disperse money as they see fit without the interference of central government, shall we be able to have any sort of look out towards a future of anything decent for the Scottish people. I think the words neglect and deprivation sum up very much what's happened to Scotland. Scotland has been attacked and viciously decimated by the London government, and Scotland in no way is having any say in that. And the Scottish National Party believes that it is of paramount importance that for the entire survival of the Scottish people, for the survival of Scotland, and for the beautiful scenery of Edinburgh today, the only way that we will have a decent future will be the establishment of a Scottish Parliament. Because if London is insistent on making us a target in the event of nuclear war, and a nuclear missile happens to hit Edinburgh, all this will be gone. There'll be nothing left.
Oh, you'll need to do it a bit larger than that, I think. I think you'll need to do it a bit larger than that. Look, I have to come down, all right? Okay, bye. That's a bit small, actually, because it's got to go right across there.
Right across?
Yes.
Is that what we agreed?
It's going on the one underneath like that. Well, every member's a member of a branch, which is just a group that meets in the locality. I'm in Tower Hamlets, Tom's in Hackney. And we just have meetings once a week where we discuss either sort of theory, such as Marxism, our view of the world, the state, economics and things like that, or else much more down-to-earth subjects like youth unemployment, what's actually happening. For example, this challenge special is on everything that Tebbit is proposing on youth unemployment and these training schemes, which we think are a rip-off, basically. We think there should be a lot more training in them. So most branches by now have had some kind of discussion on that. Well, my parents were quite sort of left-wing, so I'd always been aware of socialist politics. And then when I was at school, I started getting involved in our school council and started to meet people who were actually active politically. Then I started going on demonstrations and things about peace and Vietnam and things like that. And I met a lot of communists, so I ended up joining in Westminster, where I was living, local branch.
At what age did you join?
I was quite young, I think it was about 14, something like that.
And how old are you now?
I'm 26, just about to leave.
Leave the YCL?
Yeah.
That's your age limit?
Yeah, we've got an age limit. The age range is 13 to 26. Hello? Oh, it still have to... No, it have to be larger than that. Okay. Yeah. Look, I'll have to come down, okay? Alright, bye.
Well, I first stood for Parliament in Stratford-upon-Avon against Angus Maude, who was rather an old chap at the time, and was completely out of touch with all the teenagers of Great Britain. And as I was an entertainer, I was more closer to the young people than the likes of Angus Maude. So I thought I'd challenge him for Stratford-upon-Avon. And I had the National Teenage Party at the time, votes for 18, and for commercial radio. And as you know, we've got votes at 18 now, and commercial radio has come about.
Tell us a little about 1966 and Harold Wilson. You stood against him where?
At Huyton, it was in the general election. I canvassed for 3 weeks up there and did shows and held meetings and marches.
How many votes did you get?
And in the end we got 209 votes, which was very good. And that was National Teenage Party again, votes for 18, and commercial radio and all things like that.
Your only two hobby horses, your only two policies?
No, there was a local issues like old pensioners' toilets and a brand new swimming pool and all things like this. So we had a lot of local issues as well, and a link road going around the town and stuff like that.
So what about the future?
Well, we're hoping to link all the independent candidates together and have a national independent candidate party throughout the country, and then we can go on prime-time television and get complete coverage with the media and have a party political broadcast and the mass meetings like the major parties do.
I have to admit, I originally stood for Parliament inspired by screaming Lord Sutch, because I thought, well, he got so much publicity and he hasn't actually done that tremendously in the Record Sales League, and I'd done marvellously in the Record Sales League. Why not get some publicity too? So, standing just for fun, I went into a by-election in Epsom, and when I started struggling away down there, because it actually isn't quite as easy as it looks to get nominated to stand for Parliament, you do have to get signatures from residents and all that, which takes a bit of effort. So having done all that, I thought, well, I might as well make a few token gestures and be seen in the area. And being seen in the area, I noticed all sorts of things like there were no cinemas in the entire constituency and nothing to do at night for the kids and so on. So I began to stand rather seriously and actually started saying things that I thought were reasonably valid. And I also noticed that the calibre of people standing for Parliament was abysmally low, even including, dare I say it, the calibre of those who eventually got voted for. So I ran actually fairly seriously for a few weeks and ended up getting an extremely enormous amount of votes, several thousand in fact. So bolstered up by that, I decided to stand once more at the general election. This was a mistake. Never, gentle viewer, stand at a general election, because the voters are voting for the party they want to rule the country, and they're not prepared to go for somebody who's a little bit oddball and a bit different, but they might vote for because they think he might be the right person to represent them in Parliament. So as a result, in the general election at Richmond, we got a very small vote, but we did beat the National Front.
I think the issue of the common market is still very relevant. The National Front has always been resolutely against the common market. At the time when the Labour Party were very much in support of it. It's essential that Britain withdraws to implement many of the economic policies, such as the implementation of import controls that are necessary to secure the survival of the British economy.
I'm not really worried about talking about who's going to be the leader of the party, because the National Front now, at least, has shed off its belief in the one leader principle, and it now believes that our strength lies in our ideology, and it's the ideology of racial nationalism, which is what concerns us. And we believe that if we win, it will be because of the efforts of all of our members preaching the idea, which we believe our idea is better than any other political ideology, and that's our major strength.
was 16 when I first heard of the Socialist Workers Party. I was working in a warehouse down Alperton. I was just basically carrying things around. It was a temporary job. You know, I had done another job before that, been on the dole. I was doing a job, I was going back on the dole shortly. And basically I wasn't really very satisfied with how things were developing. I talked to these people, I had read their paper a couple of times, they invited me to meetings, and I found more and more that I was agreeing with what they said. We see the world in a different way to how they see it. We see the world and we see that on the one hand you have wine lakes, you have butter mountains, you have beef mountains, you have tomatoes dumped in the sea, you have whole fields of wheat being burnt. On the other hand, you see half the world's population starving. On the one hand, in this country, you see 4 million unemployed, you see over 1 million people homeless, and on the other hand, you see 250,000 building workers on the dole. And you look at this craziness and you say, well, why is it? Why is it that there's more food than we need? Why is it that the world can produce twice the food that the population of the world requires, and yet at the same time half the world starves? Why is it that people are homeless and yet there's building workers on the dole? And you have to say, the fact is that this system relies on the profit motive. The driving force of this system is profit. If to an American farmer he can get more profit by burning half his wheat and therefore pushing up the price for the other half of it and therefore make more money out of it, then that's what he's going to do, because this system is based on profit and not people. And what we say is that we can construct a world, when I say we, I mean the working class can construct a world where in fact people come before profit, where people, what people need, what people want is the driving force of the system. Power actually lies with two groups within society. It lies with those who own the wealth at the moment, the people who own the factories, the people who own the means of producing wealth. And on the other hand, it lies with the working class, because we actually do the work. If you take Lord Vestey, for instance, Lord Vestey would not have all his hundreds of millions if it wasn't for the fact that there's dockers bringing in his food, there's warehousemen freezing it, there's butchers cutting it up, there's people selling it, all the time producing profits. We as a class produce everything in this world, whether it's the chair you're sitting on, whether it's the camera you're using here, we actually produce. So in that sense, there are two power centres within society. There's the ruling class who at the moment have it, and there's us who produce everything and therefore have the power to change it.
Hey, you, come on over here. That's right, you, come on. That's right, come on. Yeah, come up close. You know, I've got something really important to say to you. There's a whole new politics out there. It's called green politics. It's about politics for life, and it's just waiting out there for you to get stuck in and get involved. Now, that politics is about the future. If you want to be part of that future, if you want to have a future, you've got to get involved now.
Life is very short and there's no time.
We do not need protection from each other, because we do not threaten each other. What we need is protection from a government which threatens us 24 hours a day.
Look at what happened. Look at New York City when the lights go out for 1 hour.
That's a pathetic example.
Is that the politicians?
That's a pathetic example. Let me explain. Look, you see, you're being a sinner to your own case. Let me explain.
Your definition of life stinks. You said all life is food, drink, a place to sleep, and shelter, and that's baloney.
And you'll be responsible for their own lives.
Your point is
so
weak,
every
man.
other aspect of their life is the responsibility of somebody else, all right? Then if suddenly you withdraw that somebody else from them, then you're left with a drunk junkie who's gone cold turkey.